Okay, so this is part 2 of the Within Participants ANOVA. The screencast-o-matic that we use only allows us to do 15 minutes worth of recording, which is why we have to break these down into 15-minute chunks. If you remember the previous one, if you heard the previous one, which you should have done, you would have probably heard me at the end drowning in a sea of point zeros and all that kind of stuff. Just to be completely clear about that, our usual accepted criterion for significance is 0.05. We did 4 pairwise comparisons, so we should divide 0.05 by 4, and that gives us a new significance level of 0.0125. Okay, and 0.001 here is substantially below 0.0125, so this one is significant, but none of the other ones are. So let's see what that means. If we go back up to our graph, we kind of knew that already. What it means is that there's no difference between, there's no difference for a simple task. Sorry, in a loud, there's no effect for if you've got a simple task versus a complex task at the bottom here. Noisiness has no effect. However, if you're doing a simple task, there's no effect. There's no problem of noise either. Okay. But if you've got a complex task and it's noisy, then there's a problem. We're making more errors. And again, big is bad here. So, even though there was a significant main effect of task, simple versus complex, even though there was a significant main effect of noisiness, these aren't terribly important. What matters, the most important part of that is the interaction. Because if you were to ask somebody, I'm going to perform a task, is it better to do it in a noisy environment or a quiet environment? Or if they say, do I need to make sure that when I perform a task, it's absolutely silent? Then the answer to the question isn't, yes, it needs to be quiet, or it's absolutely fine, it can be noisy as you like. The question you then need to ask is, well, is the task complex? Because if it is complex, noise can significantly impair the task. You will make more errors. On the other hand, if the task you perform is simple, then you can simply say it doesn't make a difference. Noise does not affect the simplest, a simple task. So that's why the interaction is important, and why these simple main effects. Because the message you give from a piece of research may not be, yes, noise affects task performance. It may be some interaction. As we see, many things in the world are interactions, as we saw in the previous example. If you've done it this way around, I'm kind of assuming that you're doing within participants after between participants. But if you've done the one on the between participants and of a screencast, you will see that the best therapy, at least in the data that was presented there, it wasn't a best therapy. The best therapy depended upon the gender of the client. Okay, so one final thing I might show you here is how to do a graph. If these graphs are very nice, nothing wrong with these. You may want to tidy them up a bit if you want to put them in a project to show to people. You would obviously report the means, standard deviations and stuff as well, report the significant ANOVAs, and then only report the t-test that was significant when you write it up. You don't need to say, report all the non-significant t-tests. You just say 4 pairwise comparisons were performed, all of these were non-significant apart from, and then report the t-values and p-values of the one that was actually significant. There's no need to report the 3 non-significant t-tests. Just say that you did them and they were all non-significant. Show you if you want to do a nicer graph here, because sometimes people forget about this. Graphs, legacy documents, and let's do a bar chart. Now when we do a within participants design, a purely within participants design, we can stick to simple, right? But we want summaries of separate variables. So it's different to what we do if we're doing a between participants design here. Separate variables, because in SPSS's language, a variable is basically a column. If you go back to and look at the SPSS data view, actual data, each of the columns before you enter anything in says var. So that's what it means by variables. We want to do a summary of each column, and we do define, and then we want our bars to represent just what we've got here. We want to put titles on it, we can do. If we want to put an error bar in it, let's do standard deviation. Let's make that one standard deviation. Doesn't matter whatever you think communicates things best for you, and then we can simply click OK. And then we've got a reasonably nice bar chart here, which again shows the same kind of message as the other one. There's no difference here, there's no significant differences between these three here, but complex noisy is significantly impairs performance, because remember, big is bad. Okay, that concludes all my information for you about with impedance ANOVAs.